welcome to World War II Solitaire board game channel. Today we're gonna take a look at and play a game that I've been looking forward to sharing with you guys, Schwarm. For all of you old school gamers who played Queen of the Skies, which is the very first World War II solo board game, this is where you're gonna play the enemy. We are playing the Schwarm, the German fighters trying to bring down that poor B-17 heading for home. This game is released by LPS. You can get it in Against the Odds magazine number 34, or you can get it by itself from the Against the Odds magazine website. You will find a link in the description of the video. So let's get right to it. First of all, I'm going to show you how to set up this game. So let's get a closer look at the game. Alright, so let's set up the game. Something cool about this game is that it lets you choose which German fighters you want to use. You can choose between the legendary 109 Messerschmitt plane, or you can go ahead and play with Focke-Wulf planes. They are a little bit different. The Messerschmitt is not quite as powerful as the Focke-Wulf when it comes to armaments. However, the Focke-Wulf is gonna have problems maintaining high altitude and getting those nice bonus die roll modifiers in turn 3 and later in the game. In this game, in this video, we're gonna play with the 109, and I'm gonna also do a separate video with the Focke-Wulf plane, so you'll kind of see how they work differently. But in this game, like I said, we're gonna use the 109. So we'll set aside the Focke-Wulf planes, and we'll save the 109s here on this next to the table, or on the table. We will take our tactical points, which will be used to send out pair of fighters and other stuff, and we will put that on number 5 on the tactical points tracker. This also tracks the damage of the B-17, and that's why we are going to take all of the damage trackers. These are different hits, you can see here, fuselage hits, and we have right guns. Let's see if we can get a better focus on the camera, engine hits, and so on. So this is how we're going to track the hits, different kind of hits on the B-17. You can see you can get a bunch of different hits. We have 8 different kind of hits possible to do on the poor B-17. So we'll place those at 0. And then we're gonna go ahead and use a D10 and roll, because since we're pouncing on this B-17, it's all alone. It's kind of, this one is returning to inland, breaking from formation, probably due to some kind of damage. So that's why we have starting damage. We're gonna roll a D10 and see what starting damage we have. You can also, for an easier game, it says in the rules, you can roll 2 times, and for a harder game, you can roll 0 times. But we will play with the standard rules, so we will roll once. And we roll a 4, and 2 to 4 is 1 fuselage damage. And you need 6 of those hits, which you can see here. We're going to take a closer look soon, but 6 of those fuselage hits to actually bring down the B-17. Cockpit hits only require 2 hits. And we will put that on number 1, indicating that it has received 1 hit on the fuselage. I'm sorry if I'm bad at pronouncing that word. Okay, once we are done with that, we're gonna go ahead and place out our sun marker. And we have different yellow circles here with black numbers inside, and those are the locations, the possible locations for the sun. And we're gonna roll a D10 for that. And we roll a 5, meaning we're gonna get to place our sun here at 5 o'clock in high altitude. And that's it's gonna remain there for the rest of the game. You don't change the location of the sun. And then we have 2 turret markers. We have our top turret and our ball turret. We are going to go ahead and shuffle those. I'm looking away. You can see them, but I can't. I'm looking at the wall right now. And then you'll randomly put 1 in the top and 1 in the back here. So 1 in the front zone, 1 in the rear zone. And we got the top turret at 6 o'clock. And then we have the ball turret here at 12 o'clock. Again, we have 4 For first I'm saying we have the front zone and rear zone, and that's where they are going to start. But we also have a right zone and left zone. So there's a total of 4 zones with the different 12 o'clock zones inside. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to roll one last time. And this time we're rolling to see if... actually, this is a fun scenario, because what you will do is you will roll a d10. And if you get an even result, the top turret is going to stay where it is. But if you get an uneven result, the top turret will move where the sun is. But the sun is already, or the top is already in the same zone as the sun, so we don't even have to roll. But say, for example, that the sun would be over here in location 9 and 4. That's sun location 9 or 4, 9 o'clock. In the left zone, if I would have rolled a 7, it would have changed its place to the left zone instead of staying here in the rear zone. We rolled 10, so that's an even result. It's gonna stay even if the sun was in another location. Okay, so we are ready to play, but before we start, I just want to let you know a little bit about how the game flows. So basically the game is done in 5 different steps. The first step, you will choose how many rottes. Rotte, it says in the rules, is a pair of fighter. So you will decide how many pair of fighters you're going to send out, and you will pay 1 tactical point for each pair of fighter that you send out to pounce on the B-17. After you've done that, you are going to place out your pair of fighters around the map. Then you're going to do a position check on each fighter. After you've done that, you're going to do a turret adjustment, and then finally you are going to do combat. So that's basically 5 steps of each turn, and I'm going to go through all of them in detail. So now we start with step number 1, which is choose how many pair of fighters you're going to send out. So one thing to note here is that during your first pass against the B-17, the first pair of fighters, the first rotte you send out, is free and doesn't cost any tactical points. But any additional pairs I send out will cost 1 tactical point per pair. And that's also for your first pair in any additional turn of the game. So when I place these fighters out, there are many things to consider. For example, you might want to go for tail hits. Then obviously you're going to go at the rear zone. If you're looking for cockpit hits, you want to go in the front zone. You also have to take into account where you have the enemy ball turret and top turret, and obviously also the sun. Because if you attack in altitude and zone or clock space, which is on the opposite way of the sun, you're going to have a negative die roll modifier. But if you attack from the same area as the sun, you're actually instead going to get a bonus. Let's see what I want to do. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and attack from the right zone. I will place my fighters here, and when you do your position check on your fighters, they will most likely have to move around a little bit. And we're going to go into detail about how that works. But basically, I'm going to put them here, hoping that they will go into where the sun is, giving me that positive die roll modifier from attacking from the sun. So another thing to note during this step 2 out of 5, which is placing your pair of fighters out, is that during the initial pass, all pair of fighters must be placed in the same zone. So that's something to consider during your first pass. So I am going to go ahead and use, let's see, yeah, I want to use all of my fighters. And why this might seem bold, just see that I paid 2 tactical points. I didn't pay for my first pair, which you don't do during your initial turn. Yes, it might seem bold using all of the fighters, but there's actually a way that you can call them back and get your tactical point back. So I think it's better to put out many of them instead of being cheap. and then you draw back the fighters which you don't feel like you got a good position with, and get your tactical points back, and you get some really good positions, hopefully, for the ones that are remaining. Okay, so we have done step 2 out of 5, which leaves us to position check on each fighter. And I'm going to tell you how this works, but I want to get a little bit closer to the map. Okay, so this is how you're going to do your position check on your fighter. You see that this airplane has 12 different clock areas, and then you see these little small dots under the numbers. So we are currently in 4 o'clock zone, which has a value of 3. And this value is called inertia. I personally don't know this word. I tried looking it up in the dictionary, it doesn't exist. Looked at Google Translate, and it translates to Swedish, meaning slowness. Anyway, this is the inertia value. And basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll a d10 and say that I roll, for example, 8. I'm gonna go ahead and move the fighter towards 6 o'clock, and that spends those 3 inertia dots from 8 to 5. And then I'm gonna keep going until I run out of points to spend. So the next zone, which is 5 o'clock, also has the values of 3. So I'm moving again to 6 o'clock, and now I'm down to 2. And the next zone, which is 6 o'clock, has 5 points, and I can't afford that, so that means my fighter is gonna stay at 6 o'clock. If I would have had rolled, if I had more inertia points to spend, it would just keep going. But it will always go towards 6 o'clock. If I would have had it at 12 o'clock, I would have rolled the d10 first. If it's uneven, I would go this direction. If it's even, I would go clockwise. And then I would roll to see how many times I would move. So from here, I would move 7 inertia points. So that's 3, 5, 6, and I would stay here. Something else is that if you move 2 zones or 3 zones, you will also lose 1 altitude level. If you move 4 zones, you're going to lose 2 altitude levels. And if you go from low and lose an altitude level, you're gonna drop out. Okay, so I hope you get my explanation. It's a little bit hard to explain when I can't pronounce this word, but you're gonna see how it works as we play the game. Okay, so I have 6 Messerschmitt planes to do a check on, a position check, so we are gonna go ahead right now and roll for the first one. And I rolled a 4, so he's just gonna move 1 area, since he spent 3 points moving from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and 5 o'clock would require him to spend 3 additional inertia points, but he only has 1 remaining. So we go for the next one. Also, something to note here, that we do have a top turret here. The top turret can, also the turret should be on their spray side during the beginning of the game. But a top turret can target a fighter on high and level, while the ball turret can target on level and low. And the first time a fighter moves into the zone with the turret is going to go ahead and lock on that fighter. So this turret has now locked onto the fighter. Otherwise it would have been spraying, and spraying means it would have affected all the fighters at high and level altitude in the rear zone where that turret is located. So we have now our 109 in the sun with a turret locked onto it. And we're going to go ahead and roll for these guys too. Next one rolls a 4, so he's also going to end up there, but he's not affected by the turret. We roll a 7, so that means moving over here, spending 3 points. We're down to 4, and then moving again, spending 3 points, so we are down to 1. Next area would cost 5 points, we obviously don't have, so he's staying. Also note that since we moved 2 areas, he has to drop altitude by 1, so from high to level. This guy is gonna go ahead and stay over here. This guy is moving 8, so that's, let's see, 6. Yeah, he's also moving over here. And then last guy. And he rolls a 9. He's also going to stay over here. Let's see, 6, 8. Yeah, he's going to stay. So these are our final fighters. And now we are going to go to step number 4 out of 5, which is turret adjustment. And if there is a turret in a zone without any fighters, it will move to automatically if it has an adjacent zone with fighters which it can reach in it. So this one would require a fighter in low or level. But since this guy, the only adjacent zone where we have a fighter is the right zone, is on high altitude, it's not automatically gonna go into the right zone. So the way it works is simple. You will again roll a d10. If it's even, it will go clockwise. If it's uneven, it will go counterclockwise. So this is the way always it works. If you go clockwise or anti-clockwise, is even and uneven. Okay, so we have done now our turret adjustment. This guy is not going to do anything since he's already locked on to a fighter. Okay, so that's step 4 out of 5. That means we go now to the last step, which is combat. Okay, so now we have to decide if we want to do a break off with any of our fighters. Again, aborting is gonna grant us 1 tactical point. We are now down to 3. If we ever reach 0 at the end of a turn, at the end of a pass, that means we have lost the game. We can go to 0 tactical points in the beginning of a turn, but never in the end. Okay, so let's see. This is a dangerous position to be in, but I think I'm gonna take a chance. These 2 guys I am gonna retreat with, because this one is all alone. And these 2 guys can actually work together, but this guy is also alone because they can only work in pairs. So these guys I'm gonna go ahead and send back, and I'm just gonna show you my tactical screen here, and tactical points go from 3 to 4 since I returned those fighters. Another thing to note is that you might remember that during your first initial pass, the first pair of fighters you send out is free. And you will not get a tactical point for drawing back that first initial free pair of fighters you sent out. Okay, so we are gonna go do combat now, and the way you do combat is you turn these guys around and you look at their combat die roll modifiers. So I told you that fighters can work in pair, and the way this works is we have 2 fighters here, and they are going to have the same attack value, and you're going to use the best attack value. So this one has a positive die roll modifier of 2 and a negative of 1. That's the B17 defensive fire. But he's going to use the attack die roll modifier of the better one, which is 4 instead of 2. However, they will always have the natural defensive fire from the B17. That will never change. That will be individual. And then you will also look at this number. You see here we have a positive 1 of 5 and a negative 1 of 4. And then the damage we do, we will see here. For example, if we score a 10, that's gun damage. 1 to 13 is fuselage. 14 to 15 is engine damage. 16 to 17 is tail damage. 18 plus is tail plus any damage you choose. So this is an extremely dangerous position, because if the B17 rolls 10 or higher, that kills the fighter. And the number here is 4, and this one already has a 1. So this feels a little bit stupid, but I am here, so I gotta fight now. Because if I roll a 5 or higher, that means this guy is taken out. So let's see. We roll 2d10. The white one represents the B17, the black one represents my fighter. So we roll for this guy first. Ooh. Okay, so that's a bad roll, and I advise you to first look at the B17, because if the B17 hits, doesn't matter what you roll, you're gonna miss. Okay, so we roll the 5 plus 1 from the fighter, so that's a 6. plus 4 from the location of the fighter, so that's a 10. A 10 means he's hit. So I can save him now, because if I lose this fighter, that means I've lost the game. But I can save him by spending 1 tactical point. So that's what I'm going to do. I put him back here, and I spend 1 tactical point to save him. Okay, we still have this guy. If I roll a 6 with the B-17 defensive fire, I'm done for. So let's hope we make it. Oh, that's a good roll, guys. So I rolled a 10. And then they rolled 2. So their roll is going to be 4 plus 2, that's 6. So that's no damage. No need to roll 10. I rolled a 10 plus 4 from my fighter. That's 14 plus 5 from this guy. So that's going to be 19. And 18 plus is tail damage plus any. So what I'm going to do is put 1 tail damage. Let's see, I want to show you this board as well. So first of all, I'm going to put 1 tail damage. And if we calculate, we have already 1 fuselage damage and we have 1 tail damage. And for every 2 hits that the B-17 receives, you will gain 1 tactical point. And then I also got damage I can choose. And what I'm going to choose is actually cockpit damage. That's my favorite, because you go from the front where you don't have these very dangerous B-17 defensive fire roll modifiers, and you only need 2 cockpit hits to bring the B-17 down. Okay, so we have 1 cockpit hit now, 1 tail hit, and 1 fuselage hit. We have 4 tactical points, and that's it for this fighter. He's going back to base. Okay, so here we have another story. We have 2 109 fighters at high altitude attacking from out of the sun, but my first 109 has a turret tracking it. So it's going to gain a negative 1 plus for the B-17 defensive fire and minus 1 to its attacking roll. So let's see what kind of score these guys have. Not very good scores. I mean, this one is decent, but this one is not very good. We're also attacking from the sun, so that's gonna put minus 2 to the B-17 defensive fire, because they're having difficulties firing at us since we're, they're getting the sun in their eyes. So let's start. Let's see, this one should be on its top side. Let's start with my 109, which doesn't have the turret tracking it. And it's gonna have, because it's attacking in pairs, it's gonna have 3 in attack value from this guy. So let's see. Oh, this can be a good roll, I think. Let's see. So obviously the 4 here is not gonna be enough. It's gonna be turned into a 7 with the high position number, which is 3. And then that 7 is going to turn into an 8 with the 1 from the counter itself. But then that 8 is going to turn into a 6 from the sun. So the B-17 defensive fire is unsuccessful. I roll a 5. I will get a 3 plus, so that's 8 from my friend's attack value. And then plus 3 from the location, so that's 11. 11 is fuselage damage. So we go to our markers here and we put our fuselage here on 2. And again, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. So that's a tactical point we gain. We now have 5 tactical points. Okay, so first pass by the first fighter was successful. Let's see if our other guy, 109 here, is as successful. I mean, he does have the turret tracking him, so this can turn badly. Let's roll and see what happens, guys. Oof. Okay, so it looks like, yes, I am down. It doesn't matter what I rolled, because I rolled a 9 for the B-17 defensive fire. That's going to turn into a 10 with the number from the counter itself. Then 13 from the location, plus 3. And then plus 1 from the turret, so that's 14. Minus 2 from the sun, that's 12. That's still 3 numbers too high. That means this guy is shot down. and I can save him by spending 1 tactical point to do some kind of emergency, break off. And that, my friend, is the end of turn number 1. I think it was actually quite an exciting turn. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and shuffle these fighters. You know, if you're having like trouble shuffling them and thinking like, oh man, I still know which fighter is which, I like to look at the wall or the ceiling or think of something else while you're doing it, because quite honestly, now I have no idea which fighter is which. Okay, so that's the end of turn 1. We go now into turn number 2. The turrets are staying in their zones, and they are staying with their spray side up. Okay, so for this turn, I think I'm gonna go ahead and attack from the front zone. And again, I'm gonna be so bold and take all of my fighters and send them out. And I'm sending them out at 12 o'clock high. And that's gonna cost me 3 tactical points, so I go from 4 to 1. So I really need to do some damage now, otherwise this is gonna be quite difficult to win. Okay, so I chosen how many pair of fighters I want to use. I place them out. Now I'm gonna do that position check. And I start with the first one. And take note that 12 o'clock has the inertia value of 4. So the first one is staying where he is. He needs a roll of 4 or higher to have to move. And then we roll a 10, so that's going to be quite a move. And now, since he's at 12 o'clock, we also have to see if he moves to 6 o'clock on the left or right, so clockwise or counterclockwise. Uneven means counterclockwise, and I roll 10, so that's going to be quite a move. That's 4 points, 6 remaining, 3 points, 3 remaining, and dropping 1 altitude level. 2 points, 1 remaining, and then 1 point, and there we finally end up in, let's see, 8 o'clock at low altitude. We had to move 4 zones, so we have to drop 2 altitude levels, and he's also entering the left zone, which has the ball turret, and that's going to go ahead and lock onto him. Okay, next fighter. Let's hope he's a little bit more lucky. And we roll a 2, so he's also going to go ahead and stay where he is. 9, and he's going to go also counterclockwise. And let's see, he's going to go ahead and move 5 more points to spend, 2 more points to spend, 0 more points to spend. So he's going to end up at 9 o'clock at level altitude. Next 109. A 1, so he's staying also. Next one, can he also stay? Oh yes, I got 2 guys staying up here. 2 pairs, that's wonderful. 2 pairs of fighters staying at high altitude at 12 o'clock. These 2 guys are gonna go ahead. Before we do that, we're actually gonna do our turret adjustment. So this ball turret, he's engaging target, so he's gonna stay where he is. The top turret doesn't have a target, and it automatically moves to an adjacent zone with available targets. And here we have a 109 at level altitude. This one can target at high and level, so it's moving into this zone automatically. When it moves in this way, it does not lock on to any fighter, it stays on its spray side. Spray side means it's affecting all of them. Okay, so now we go into our combat, which is the last step of the turn. And we are going to go ahead and retreat with these 2 fighters. So by doing so, aborting, we also gain 1 tactical point. We go from 1 to 2 tactical points. Okay, so we have 2 pair of fighters here. I think we have a good chance to do some damage. Remember, we only need 1 cockpit damage to bring this bird down. We have no negative die roll modifiers from any turrets. We are not on the opposite side of the sun. And also, if you look at 12 o'clock high is quite a good place to be, because we have a positive die roll modifier of 2 to our attack, and also a good one for the defensive fire because that's a -1. So they will need to roll an 11 to hit me, which is impossible basically, unless I have a counter with the -1. Okay, so we're gonna start with our first pair here. Let's hope they have some. Oh yeah, look at that, 4 and 2. That's gonna be quite good. Okay, let's start with this guy here. We roll again black for us, white for B17. Ooh, look at that. We rolled a 9 for the B17 defensive fire. That's gonna turn into a 10 with our counters, -1. But we are in high position at 12 o'clock, and that's the only one where we get a -1 on the B17 defensive fire. So the 10 turns back into a 9, and we are alive. Okay, so we rolled a 5. The 5 is gonna be turned into a 7 from our position, which is 2, and then 4 from our wingman. So 7 plus 4, that's 11. And 11, look at that, that's fuselage damage. So more of that fuselage damage. You don't see what I'm doing, so I'm going to show you guys. So fuselage damage, we go up to 3. Let's see, how many damage points we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we need 1 more damage point to get a tactical point. Okay, let's see, without messing this up. Okay, so the first pass with my first fighter was quite good. Let's hope for even higher numbers. I really want to get that cockpit hit. So let's go with the next fighter. Ooh, look at that, guys. Man, that is cool. Okay, so this guy is flying back to base. First of all, the B-17 defensive fire, they roll a 9. As you know, a 9 is not enough. I don't have a -1 from my fighter, and the high altitude at 12 o'clock is -1, so the 9 turns into an 8. I'm good. I, however, roll a 10. The 10 turns into a 14, and the 14 turns into a 16 with the high altitude +2. 16 here on the damage chart is fuselage damage again plus any. And you can guess what that any is going to be. That any, my friend, is going to be another cockpit hit. And of course we have fuselage hit. It's going to give us also an additional tactical point. But it's ended here, guys, because B-17 is destroyed on 2 cockpit hits. Man. Okay, so the B-17 is crash landing and all the crew bailed out. Don't worry, guys, they made it. But we did score that kill. And this is our guy who made it happen. Okay, guys, so this is B-17 Schwarm, and I can tell you right now that the reason why I'm sounding so happy is because this is quite a tough game. It's not very easy all the time. I think I won maybe 2 times before out of, I don't know, maybe 8 games or something like that. So I think it's a good difficulty level. And also you have the adjustment difficulty by, changing. You can change, according to the rules, you can change, first of all, the initial damage. Easy game, you roll 2 times. Normal game once. Hard game, no times. And then the tactical points adjustment, you score 1 point for each 2 hits, but you can also do 1 point for every 3 hits if you want to have a hard game according to the rules. So there are official rule ways to change the game and make it harder. I want to say I really like this game. Again, we have a really cool portable game, a game which we can bring anywhere. It doesn't weigh anything. We only need 2d10 and we're set to go. Another thing I like with these games is they're usually on the lighter side, which this obviously is. The rules are 2 pages and you're good to go. That's it. And what I like with these games is I like to just leave them up on my table, and then as the day goes I might feel like, I got some time to spend, I got 20 or 30 minutes, let's just sit down and play a game of B-17. And because not always you have the time or the energy to sit and play, Awakening the Bear or something heavier like that. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'm gonna do another playthrough with the Focke-Wulf planes as well. I prefer the Messerschmitts, but you can see if you are able to score those high victory levels, the high die roll modifiers early in the game, Focke-Wulfs can also be rewarding to use, but like I said, they have problem keeping high altitude, so if you are playing a long game, 109s are better. Okay guys, thank you a lot for watching. Link in the description where you can buy the game. Please subscribe to my channel, helps me out a lot. See you next time.